Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Weasleys. More specifically, we're going to be discussing facts about the Weasleys that people who have only seen the films won't know. Ahh the Weasleys, the child-wealthy, money-poor family that we're introduced to right in the beginning of the series, as Harry attempts to board the Hogwarts Express at platform 9 3/4. Fussy but loving Mrs. Molly Weasley is kicking her children into gear in order to make sure that they make the train on time, and Harry, just by being close by, is brought into her gravitational pull as she gives the children orders left and right. However, what surely no one knew at this point was just how close Harry would become with the friendly, loving, and quirky red-headed family. The Weasleys immediately make their mark in the story as good people who have nothing but Harry's best interest in mind, and this fact stays true for the entire story. As Harry came from a very broken, complicated home, he spent countless weeks at the Weasley family home, and during those times, Molly Weasley took him in like one of her own, no questions asked. The immediate Weasley family, in its entirety, consists of Fred, George, Charlie, Molly, Arthur, Ginny, Bill, Percy, and of course Ron, and I guess we should sort of count Harry as a kind of pseudo-foster child. Because of the prevalence of the Weasleys to the Harry Potter story, we get to know a lot of the characters quite well. We see them grow, evolve, and change into strong, independent people. But with that said, the films certainly don't give us the same amount of information as the books. There are a lot of things about these lovable characters, some fan favorites, that you simply will have missed if you didn't read the books. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing some of these facts. We can't expect the films to include everything, that would be unreasonable. But would it have really been such a big deal to give us 5-hour extended editions of each film? Well, probably. But a man can dream. Without further ado, here are 7 facts about the Weasleys that only book readers will know. Number 7. Percy the Traitor. Remember Percy, the problematic Weasley? Well, as it turns out, the problematic nature of Percy isn't ever really properly addressed in the films. One moment he's leading new Gryffindor students to the Gryffindor common room, and the next he's got his hands on Harry Potter, working on behalf of Cornelius Fudge and the Ministry. So what happened to Percy? How did a boy that came from such a loving family, who had a close relationship with Harry, I might add, turn into this sniveling traitor? How could he work for Fudge? Well, as it turns out, it's actually revealed in the books how this happens, and it all starts with Percy having a falling out with his family. Percy, like Fudge, refused to believe that Voldemort had returned to power, and so he had trouble coping with his family, who were big Harry and Dumbledore supporters. Percy was everything his family wanted him to be: smart, driven, well-behaved, but he took it too far. They mainly quarreled because he sided with the Ministry at a time when the Ministry was even more questionable than usual. Fortunately, however, peace is made with Percy later on. Number 6. Molly's Boggart. A Boggart is essentially the manifestation of someone's deepest, darkest fears. It is an amortal, shape-shifting non-being that transforms itself into whatever you fear most. No one knows what a Boggart looks like by itself, because it will transform as soon as you encounter it. When Boggarts aren't scaring people, they can usually be found rustling around in confined spaces or lurking around dark corners. What the films never reveal, however, is Molly Weasley's Boggart, which Harry witnesses her trying to remove from number 12 Grimmauld Place. While trying to oust the creature from the house, she sees her biggest fear in the Boggart, and that's the death of everyone that she loves. 5. Molly and Ginny hated Fleur at first. It might come as a surprise to you that Molly, the loving, nurturing, caring mother that she is, actually hated Fleur Delacour, at least for a time. However, most of this stemmed from her love for her son, and the likely reality that she felt no woman was good enough for him. Her and Ginny's rationale for hating Fleur was a combination of fair and unfair reasons. First, they judged her by her looks, immediately categorizing her to fit the dumb blonde stereotype. Secondly, Fleur was a bit arrogant, which rubbed both Ginny and Molly the wrong way. Next, there is of course the element of motherly love. To Molly, only a perfect woman would be worthy of her Bill, and Molly was still under the impression that her relationship to Bill was largely superficial and physical. Molly simply didn't believe that Fleur was good enough for Bill, but that is primarily because she overlooked all of Fleur's positive traits. On the slightly less grave side, Molly was also irked by Fleur's distaste for her favorite singer, Celestina Warbeck. Fortunately, Molly and Ginny did eventually realize their mistake of being too harsh on Fleur. This came after Fleur demonstrated her loyalty to Bill following his debilitating injuries inflicted at the hands of Fenrir Greyback. When Fleur stayed with Bill after his appearance changed as a result of his injuries, it became clear that her relationship with him wasn't just superficial or physical. They truly were compatible. She really did love him. Number 4. Percy and Ron see Fred die. Fred Weasley's death was arguably one of the saddest moments in the story, book and film alike. However, the representation of Fred's death does differ a little from book to film. In the films, Fred appears to die alone, with none of his loved ones around him. In the book, however, Fred's demise is witnessed by both Ron and Percy. Percy, who fell out with the family in a big way, has just patched things up with Fred, when boom, a blast sends them all flying. The only one who doesn't wake up from the fall, however, is Fred. Before we get to point number 3, I just wanted to mention that I've been uploading a lot on my other channel, Mythology Explained, so if you want a mythology fix, go and check it out, link in the pinned comment. 3. Charlie Weasley makes an appearance. Though Charlie didn't make an appearance in the films, he does return to Hogwarts twice in the books. The first was in the Philosopher's Stone, when he retrieved Norberta, and the second was for the Battle of Hogwarts where he fought Voldemort and the Death Eaters. Charlie never married, nor had children, but got to spend his time with his copious siblings, nieces, and nephews. Being an outdoorsy type with an affinity for dragons, Charlie was more preoccupied with his craft rather than pursuing ladies. 2. Arthur and Molly's love. Arthur and Molly, the Weasley parents, are often portrayed as, well, parents, and we view them primarily in this way. But what we have to remember is that Arthur and Molly are also individuals. They're their own people, and not just their children's parents. This means that they of course have their own backstories. In the books, we learn that the pair met each other at Hogwarts and got up to all sorts of mischief together. On one occasion, Molly and Arthur decided to go for a late-night stroll on the Hogwarts grounds. Apollyon Pringle, the caretaker at the time, ends up catching Arthur, but not young Molly Pruitt. Number 1. The Unbreakable Vow. When you think of unbreakable vows, you usually think of Severus Snape, Narcissa Malfoy, Draco Malfoy, and Bellatrix Lestrange. However, what film watchers won't know is that another unbreakable vow is actually mentioned in the books, a vow pertaining to the Weasleys. Fred and George Weasley, in their youth, once attempted to coerce a then 5-year-old Ron into one. It is said that Fred and George were ready to perform the vow when their father, Arthur Weasley, caught them. The vow, though not quite of the same magnitude as the one engaged in by Narcissa and Snape, was still questionable magic for young wizards to be performing, on your sibling no less. This is the only instance in which the mild-mannered Arthur Weasley is said to have gotten as angry as his wife Molly. And that's it for this video. Did you know all of these book facts about the Weasleys? Obviously there are more, but I felt that these were definitely some of the big ones. Share some of your favorites down below. If you enjoy the content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live